I've never had people listen to a podcast that I was recording live.
It's a fun experience. I typically forget they're all there, and if I don't, I just pretend they're all in their underwear. Welcome one and all to Object Podcast, the game dev show featuring members of the game maker community. My name is Lazy Eye, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Maceda and Seabass. Today, our guest is Jupiter Hadley, a writer, YouTuber, reviewer, and indie game enthusiast. Jupiter is involved in so many different things that if I tried to list them all out right here, the entire podcast would just be the intro. But just to name a few, she runs her own YouTube channel where she plays indie games. She's a massive lover of game jams and has helped run and host many of them. She helped run the Game Maker meetups, which brought Game Maker developers from all over the world together to share their knowledge. And of course, she has written countless articles and reviews for many different platforms. Jupiter, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yay, this is great. That was a great intro.
Welcome to this Game Dev Podcast. So Jupiter, you recently hosted your very own game jam, is that right?
Yeah.
It was
yep.
the Jupiter Hadley Game Jams, and it was an actual in-person event. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Cool, yeah. So basically, Quang DX at Asobi Tech on Twitter was like, we run Game Maker Meetup, something, something. We should do a game jam, something, something. And we were in Germany at the time, and I was like, I like game jams, sure. And he was like, we should put your name on it. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then he planned it and did most of the back-end work, not gonna lie. And so it was a game jam where I got to pick the theme. I picked Extinction because I don't know anything about dinosaurs, and I'm like 7 now and learning about them. And yeah, so it was at a local university, and we got to use their space, which had computers full of, like, all of the engines we could ever want, and also Photoshop. And a bunch of people came. There were some talks at the end. Rami Ismail gave a 2-hour talk on anything you wanted, really. So it was a great time. I got these little glass trophies made up that I gave out to, like, the winners, which was really cool. And we had some prizes, and I had fun. I had a good time.
Oddly, the one thing that remains in my memory, and this will just show how hungry I am right now, but I recall that you guys got pizza because I saw pictures of it on Twitter, and I remember thinking at the time,
God, yeah.
I'm very jealous. I want that pizza. But
do you just not eat? Are you
no,
just not
I
fed?
do. Okay, look, I did not plan this day out well.
He's a
I
poor
thought
indie comic food.
I'm actually visiting home, so there should be like plenty of food for me right now. But I didn't plan the day well. I thought today was gonna be mostly a day off, but then I got information about a job that I'm starting back, and I got the code, so I started looking at that, and then suddenly it was 5 o'clock, and I had to like do stuff for the podcast, and I hadn't eaten. So
I mean, yeah, it sounds like bad planning.
yeah,
It's
it's
priorities backwards.
it's really
Food always first, then work.
yeah, really the answer is it's no one's fault but my own. But
Yeah.
back to the game jam, or not.
Oh, we also had judges, by the way. So Rami Ishmael was a judge, Quang DX was a judge, Andrew Lemon, who also gave a talk, was a judge, and I was a judge.
Do you think you lost points if it wasn't 4x3?
What?
Nothing? Whatever? No. Alright, this is a nuclear thrown jab. Keep going.
There we go. References. One question that I actually have for you that I was interested in hearing about. We had, in our last episode, we talked about marketing and the various steps that game devs can take towards getting buzz around their game, and then the various steps they have to take. And one of those things, of course, is being interviewed, is getting press about your game, getting reviews for your game. So as someone that sits on that other side of the fence and that you review games, you play them on YouTube, you do this press coverage for games, what advice would you have for game developers in terms of contacting press and getting features for their games? And what are the things that people often don't do? And what are the bad things that people always do that are terrible?
Okay, I'm gonna give you lots of stuff, and take it all with a pinch of salt, because I get, like, 400 emails a day.
Okay.
I get a lot of emails. Things that you should put in your email: a Steam key or a key, so that I don't have to reply and ask you for a key. Because normally when I want the key, that's when I'm recording, not when I want to chase you for something. Right. Add screenshots of your game, like or a GIF. I mean, a lot of people say add a GIF, and that can sometimes end up with your game landing in a spam box. But I mean, you go for it. Put a GIF on there. Don't talk for ages about how you're a starving indie who's not made sales or been able to get anyone to view their game, because that's
sad.
just focus on your game. Have links to everything, like a link to your Steam page. I keep saying Steam, but I guess Discord or Epic Store or itch.io page.
Changing.
Have a link to your trailer. Have some like brief descriptions on the game. If you like at the start of the email, like when you address the person, having maybe their name as opposed to the word hi, and then like a reason why you think they're like your game's good for them. Like I have opened a simulator email, and it's like I don't tend to play like hyper realistic simulator games, and it just starts off, "Hi, please check out our new game," and then just links. And that's not enough. Like I have to click these to see your game. Like please give me a bit more. A lot of times if people send me emails that are like, "We liked your article on this. Our game is similar in that it is a puzzle game as well, and it's got cool graphics. Da 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 da. Here's how our thing's unique." That's a bit more eye-catching. A lot of times it's persistence. If they don't reply, follow up like in a week. If they still don't reply, don't keep following up. That's annoying. For me personally, if you reach out to me on Twitter, because I notice more stuff on Twitter than in my email. But I don't mean Twitter DMs. I mean if you just at me with like a gif of your game, you're like, "Hey, I emailed you." That's quite cool. Those are some words.
Yeah. I was gonna laugh because ironically to all that, Jupiter, I don't think I've ever emailed you. I think you've emailed me for keys before in the past, and then the most recent time you hit me up via Twitter DM specifically. Yeah. And I remember I replied, and I think we didn't talk for like 3 months, and I was like, "Hey, do you still want a key?" And you're like, "Yeah."
I blame Sebastian.
Oh, it's super my fault. Yeah, I'm super bad about Twitter DMs. I'll look at my Twitter DM and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'll get back to that tomorrow." I'll just forget.
I believe
for, like,
I
months.
covered your game as well. It was
You did, yeah. You covered
yeah.
them. Yeah. You covered it was the pirate one. Yeah.
Yeah, 13
I
did the
never
art.
fixed that. Yeah, I never fixed the bug you had in your YouTube video, so you know, I never could find it. I tried. I spent like
Perfect.
a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I just was like,
I
it was
have
just
it on
how you market.
Xbox now, your game.
Do you? Oh my.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, Jupiter supporting the real indies. You just don't tell her that you're
And
poor.
Sebastian
and that's
gives
all I'll do.
nothing in return. doesn't even
That's
doesn't
right.
even
Just
fix the
ignores my
bug.
DMs. And I feel so shitty when I ask people for keys as well. Like, I feel so low. Like, "Hey, sorry, I don't want to play your game for fun. I just want to do it for work. And because of that, I want you to give it to me for free. I know you've worked on this too."
I feel like that should be
but, like-
expected. Like, you know, my perspective from having never done it before is that if you're going to contact press to cover your game, you should try to just take care of as much as you can for them ahead of time, so that literally the only thing standing in their way of playing your game is just playing the game and doing whatever they need to do with it. You know, you should.
Oh, also have a press kit that has some screenshots of your game, especially the early levels, so that we can easily make thumbnails. This is very important. Please don't miss
This is something
bit.
I yelled about Sebastian about a few months ago. And I made him do, including the logo,
Good.
including some screenshots, some
Good.
sprites.
For what? I have press kits for all my games.
No,
Hello?
for Don't Sync. Hello, I made you a press.
Yeah, there's a press kit on the website.
Mm,
Oh, did you?
Yes!
Oh, I remember
I
now.
made
You're
it!
right. You're super right.
I made the press kit. I sent emails for you.
No, you did.
This guy.
You did. Yes, he's right.
You should get a cut. Ask for 15, settle for 12.
There we go.
Oh,
Always open high.
That-
There's our advice.
Always ask for 15, always
I'll
settle
s-
for 12.
I'll take no less than 50%. Oh, one? I'll
I'll
take
take
it.
it.
It's better than what I was hoping for.
So, as someone that reviews and plays a lot of games, because you often like to play every single game submitted to a jam when you're doing your coverage for it.
Yeah, do you want to know how many games I've played this year?
Oh, do you have a number?
Yeah, I've played 2,899 Game Jam
Holy
games, and I've
shit.
played 84 single Let's Plays.
Oh my god. That's a lot.
That's actually the lowest. That's the lowest year I've ever had because I have a job now. But like last year, I played 228 Let's Plays, and I did 5,615 Game Jam games. I have it in a spreadsheet. You can actually view it if you go to my Patreon and click on Jupiter Hadley's Jupiter Hadley's Let's Play statistics, I believe.
Wow. That's very impressive. And it's obviously true because any game jam that I've ever participated in, I know for a fact you have played my game. I've watched you play it each time. And what's interesting is the feedback that you gave us when we did Smithy the Fishy, which Fail Positive is in here. Hey, buddy. The number one feedback you gave, and I saw on your website that it's a personal gripe of yours, is not having arrow keys support in your game. And I had no idea that was even a thing. But that's like that's a thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a thing for most people who are like left-hand dominant or who grew up playing on a laptop because their parents didn't have desktop computers. Right. Trackpad users is what I'm talking about.
I always code arrow key movement in my games because I use a weird keyboard layout, so I don't have WASD. I have to switch my keyboard layout to use WASD.
That's true. You have the weird, what is it, Dvorak keyboard layout?
Yeah, Dvorak keyboards.
How do you say it?
Dvorak. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Isn't it spelled like...
Yeah, Dvorak.
Yeah. Dvorak.
Have you considered buying a different keyboard?
Oh no, it's a QWERTY keyboard, but I have a different layout.
Wait, so wait, the letters on the keyboard are QWERTY, but you have it mapped differently? What is wrong with you?
Yeah, because I can't be bothered to swap the actual keys.
Why?
That takes effort.
Wait, but why?
Long story.
It's awful.
I like something like 10 years ago. Is it 10? Maybe 15 years ago. I had pretty severe wrist pains from just using the keyboard too much, and I thought,
oh, and this is supposed to help with that?
I think I just needed to relearn how to type properly in a better posture, and so switching to a different keyboard layout kind of forced me to completely relearn typing. And I think actually it really helped. I don't think the layout matters as much. It's just forcing me to relearn.
It still shocks me when I find out that people still peck, like with their two pointer fingers. Like I know programmers, like programmers who still
you
peck.
call it pecking when you type with like two fingers?
Yeah. With your two pointer fingers, and they swear
my dad
that it's
does that.
They swear that they're good at it and that's fast, but it's
they're liars.
They're wrong. Whether or not they're lying, they're still wrong. So okay, my original question before I got sidetracked about the arrow key thing was: as someone that has played such an insane amount of games, what are, if any, some of the traits that have stuck out to you about games that have left an impact on you, that stayed in your memory, games that you really enjoyed that have set themselves apart from all the other games that you play? Are there simple traits that you've been able to identify from all those games that you can tell just are received better by you?
Yeah, I can reply to this question before you finished asking me. Alright, so you know like how graphics are basically a game's face? Yes. I like good-looking faces. I like the graphics to look nice, and that's like a pretty basic thing, but I play a lot of Game Jam games, and having good graphics is great. When it comes specifically to Game Jam games, because obviously I play a lot of them, games that stick out more often than not are games that use the theme in a different way. So, like, Sacrifice is the recent Lunum Dare theme or whatever, and, like, a lot of it's like sacrifice things into a volcano, sacrifice aspects of your character to make it stronger, and it's, like, you play a lot of the same games, is what I'm saying, so games that look at themes but twist them in a unique way, which figure out how to do that, but that makes it stick out. On games, basically, it's just a level of polish. Games that are more polished will always stick out in my mind, and I quite like point-and-click adventure games, especially somewhat dark point-and-click adventure games, so because that's personal preference, that sticks out a bit more. I like things that are adorable. But yeah, mainly just polish and having something that looks and feels nice.
So, is polish more important than content, for example?
For me, yeah.
Okay. So you can have a really short game but super polished, and that's better than having a longer game, which
I play mainly Game Jam games, and I play them quite quickly. So for me, having a shorter game, especially when it is a Game Jam game, when you only have 2-3 days to make something, it makes sense to have more of a finished, polished experience than a ton of maps that I can play in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a hard thing for people to learn as well, because I think one of the biggest challenges in Game Jams is scoping, is being able to find an idea that is small enough for you to properly give it the attention that it deserves.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because I know for at least me personally, like the reason that I got into game development was my inspiration from games that are absolutely massive. Like my favorite game of all time that I can never get enough of is Skyrim, which is one of just the biggest, most elaborate games that you can think of. And so when you naturally start to, draw up ideas for what to make your game about in a game jam, you think of these big epic stories and all these mechanics and all these things. But it's always, to me at least, what seems like the games that stick out are these more tiny, polished, really interesting games that are more thought out than in terms of having a lot of content. One example that comes to mind, I don't remember if it was actually a Game Jam game first, but Minute, has seen incredible success this year. And it's such a simple game in its core, but there's obviously so much thought put into the specifics of the game, and it's been done so well. And I see so many people nowadays encouraging people to make smaller games, to encourage developers to make these games that are smaller. And we see more developers like what's the name of, there's a Game Maker developer, they have a Patreon, they release a game every 2 weeks, I think, or is it every week? They just made Similand. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Similand.
Oh yeah, it's like something Snook Pop or something.
Yeah, like Sock Pop. Yeah, okay, people are saying that. They released the game recently, which is kind of like a God sim game. Is that the word for it? Where you're controlling like a big world.
Yeah. I played it recently.
I haven't played it yet. I very much want to. It looks amazing. And it looked to me when I first saw it, because of the polish and attention that it had to it, it looked to me like a game that it had a long development. But then when I went to their Patreon, it turns out they make a new game like every 2 weeks, which is incredible.
Their website has physics.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's really fun. It's really fun.
They seem... I love that there are people that have been able to find success in that area of making these tiny games. That's also a super interesting Patreon format, because their backers, they get a new game every, I think it's 2 weeks. I keep saying 2 weeks. I don't know if it's 2 weeks, but every 2 weeks, just for backing them, you get a new game. It's like a subscription service for games, which is so cool.
I feel like every 2 weeks is correct.
Yeah, I don't know how you manage that. As a developer, I would lose my mind, but they still do it. But yeah, Simland or something like that, I know was particularly popular, and it looks really awesome.
I think that a lot of the struggle with those game jams, something I found with myself, is that it's really hard to find what a small scope is for you until you really learn what your own limitations are, which is why I think a lot more of those games tend to not look fantastic in game jams early on. And the ones that stand out tend to be people that have done a few game jams and have a good sense of like time management. So you kind of have to fail.
That is true.
A couple times. Maybe.
I think I only just got comfortable with scoping in the last game jam I did after, probably a year, several game jams. But the last one I did, I actually slept properly for once.
Yeah, my first game jam, I scoped as poorly as one could scope, and it was over. Like, I quit 24 hours in. My second one, I decided to scope very small, and I made a very, very bad game, but I finished it, even though it was very buggy. And then my third game jam was a game that I was very happy with. In the 11th hour, we had a horrible crash and save corrupted, and we had bugs in the final release. But the game itself...
Fishy.
This is Smithy of the Fishy, yeah. That was definitely, like, the game jam I was most proud of by far. Really fun game, and I'm happy that we got good reception on it. Jupiter actually featured it in Rock, Paper, Shotgun, which is something that I like to tell people. I was definitely happy with the results of that game jam, but we still had, a lot of things that we could have done better, and scoping that we could have done better. But my favorite thing about game jams by far, as I've probably mentioned before, is how every single time I do a game jam, I come out of it, regardless of how it went, thinking, I want to make this game a full game. Like, I want to make a full GDD right now of what this game could be on a full scale. Because it forces you to come up with these ideas with forced constraints. And constraints help you find better ideas. When you have, when you have nothing guiding you and you can think of anything, you have no way to, pull things together. But in the game jam, when you're forced to have these like crazy constraints, you come up with really good ideas.
It's the focus.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also a hard deadline. Like, you can't move it yourself.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And I'm interested because you run game jams so much, and I'm definitely interested in the process of that, because it's definitely something that I'd love to do in the future. I'd love to, and this is not like, you know, an announcement or a promise or anything. I'd love for Object Podcast to host a game jam someday. And I've asked previous guests about it too, but what advice or what words of wisdom do you have for running game jams? What makes a game jam good from the perspective of the people running it? What could
So are we talking about
do?
Physical game jams or online game jams?
Let's start with online game jams, yeah.
I'll start with, so I'm going to have to come up with things for both. Cool.
Sure, yes, yeah.
Great. So I run indiegamejams.com. That's the calendar of all of the game jams happening in the world and in physical locations. Just a little shout out to that. And basically, when it comes to running a game jam, you need to do a lot of stuff like have an actual logo, have some defined rules and or a theme. You need to advertise your game jam ahead of time so people know about your game jam. That's a key aspect to making a game jam, making sure people know something that actually go and participate. Most of the time, you need to have some sort of way for people to connect with other people and, like, also have a hashtag, because we live in an age of social media and numbers and reach count a lot for a lot of things. So having something like a Discord and making sure that there is a dedicated space for people to find teams and for people to connect with other people and share what they're working on is always a big positive and adds to the community aspect of your game jam. Making sure that there is sort of a guide to it and whatnot. By guide, I mean like tools to help people who've never had a game jam before. That really helps just get new people into it. If you're doing some sort of voting, you need to have a system where you need to make a lot of decisions. You need to decide if public can vote. You need to decide how you're going to monitor if people have cheated, if public votes. You need to check out like if you want prizes, source prizes. There's like lots of little logistic things. You also need to encourage the people that entered by playing the games. It really sucks when you enter a game jam and put all your time into this project and no one plays it until like 3 months late Jupiter comes around and records them. When it comes to a physical game jam, you need to have a couple of things to make it good. You need a place for people to sleep that's away from computers, because if not, people start to die. You also need to have food, because if not, people start to die. And you also need to encourage people to, like, not die. Cool.
Yeah, so the takeaway is physical game jams is all about keeping people alive.
It's more about being a parent.
Yeah.
In online game jams, you can think about the logistics. Yeah, no, I feel like I would definitely not die. Hopefully not die. But if I was at an IRL game jam, I would definitely forget to take care of myself. It'd feel more pressure. It'd definitely be a different environment. I really want to try one out, you know, being surrounded by all the other people in person. What I expect is that one of the great things that you can get out of a game jam that's in person is you have all these other people that are doing it with you, and it's kind of encouraging and motivating. And that's something that we try to be able to simulate a little bit in the Game Maker Discord by having events channels specifically for game jams going on, because they're much more approachable and they're much more fun when you have people sitting with you that are going through the same struggles and that are, you know, you feel like your game is going terribly, and then you look at someone saying, I just deleted my whole project, and, you know.
And you're like, oh, I'm not doing too bad.
Yeah, exactly. Having that community around you definitely helps a lot. This podcast is very obsessed with game jams, but it's for good reason. If you haven't done one yet, do it.
I mean, they're the best.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like the community aspect of a physical game jam is something this Discord, I feel, does quite well. Whenever we have a GM48, which is the Game Maker-oriented game jam, I think it's the biggest one that this community takes part in, other than Ludendare. Everyone gets together, everyone's chatting about it, sharing their work, so it's a really great feeling of community when we do them.
It is. I think having those channels is a really great way to keep people going, help them out with the jam.
Yeah.
That is definitely a challenge of game jams, is picking a good theme. And then if you have, you know, community voting for themes, that's a whole nother thing.
They always pick shit themes. The community doesn't know what they want.
That's the thing. When you know, GM48 rolls around, which is the game jam that I'll typically be either involved in or just paying attention to, there always are themes that come up that are funny or interesting, but I'm always like, you don't really want that theme. It was the
Fish with legs.
Exactly. When we did Smithy to Fishy, the reason that our main character is a fish with legs is because one of the finalists for the themes was fish with legs. And when we were waiting for the theme to come out, we were trying to think of a game that would fulfill like most categories that we expected to win, and we genuinely believed Fish with Legs would win. So that's why that was part of our idea. All right, one question that I know I do have, which is very open-ended, so you can take it however you want to take it, but
Cool.
I'm just curious, how did you originally get into video games? What's your story of how you reached this point of where you are now, living in the UK, because you're originally from America, living in the UK now, reviewing and doing all this stuff for video games. How did you get here?
Do you want the long story? Do we have time for the long story?
Yes, I'm all for the long story.
I love this question. Once upon a time, I'm gonna give you the long story. Once upon a time,
I was born.
I was born, and my brother played Minecraft. My younger brother, his name's Luke, he played Minecraft, and he was like, "Minecraft's for boys, you can't play." And I was like, "F you." And I made an account. I shared an account with him, and he got banned, and that was bad. And down the road, I met a bunch of people, because I got my own account where I didn't get banned, because I'm not a pirate who griefs. And I read server rules.
I love this story so much already.
I met some game developers, one of which he's ContraLogic on Twitter, like at ContraLogic. But his name's Chris, and Chris was like, "I'm an indie game developer. I make games," and I was like, "Lol, I play Minecraft. That's a game." And he was like, "Yeah, I make games. Do you want to see my games?" And I was like, "Sure." And I checked out his game, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. I want to make games." And he was like, "Okay, download Game Maker." And I was like, "Okay." And I downloaded Game Maker, and I made Simple Space Game, and I used to make tutorials, much like Sean Spalding, but it was kind of like me making tutorials having no clue what I was doing, so I didn't know the phrasing, or I didn't know like anything really. So it was like really weird tutorials where I was basically at base level doing stuff. And I found out that I really don't like making games. It's annoying and difficult and hard, and nothing works the way you want to, and you can it's not good. I don't have fun.
That's my life.
So meanwhile, I was also recording, we had a Minecraft server together, and I was also recording, like, mini games that I ran on my Minecraft server, and, like, reviews of other Minecraft servers and stuff like that. And my brother said, basically that, people play games better when part of their mind is slightly distracted. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna, like, record me playing, Chris's game until I beat it, because he wasn't even sure how many levels there were. He had made this game when he was drunk. It's called Riesling. It's like a side-scrolling, shooter with different, spawn bases and giant fruit. And I was like, I'm gonna figure out how many levels this is in, I'm gonna beat it, and I'm gonna record my playthroughs. So I did. Like a Let's Player, I recorded my playthrough, and at one point my dad comes into the room in that recording and goes, "It's time for dinner," and I go, "Shh," and keep playing. But I beat the game, and that's what matters, and I uploaded the video, and he was like, "You should play other people's games, it's so cool that you want to play games." So I made an account in TigSource, and I made a dumb little thread that was like, "Give me your games, I want to play them," and I already had a bit of an audience from all of my Minecraft shit. And so I was like, here's me playing games. I was like, 15 at the time. I went to school some of the time. But I mainly just stayed home and played Minecraft. And then Chris was like, "You know how you can't make games?" He said this way nicely. He said, "You know how you have difficulties making games? Did you know people make games in 48 hours? I was like, "No, they don't." He was like, "No, they do." And I was like, "Well, this is lies." Define a game. And he was like, "Ludum Dare," and I was like, "This is bullshit. What's this?" And he said, "Yeah, you should record the top games from it." And, like every other teenage millennial on the internet, I said, "How will I know the best games from Ludum Dare if I don't play them all?" And he went, "You can't play them all." And I went, "I can, because then I'll know the best ones." And he went, "There's a voting system." And I went, but the world doesn't dictate my best. And I didn't play them all. I played 600.
Oh my god, so many games.
Yeah, and then I was like, I'm gonna do this all the time because people were so grateful and surprised. And so at the time there were only 4 game jams. There's Ludum Dare, and I see you saying that's how you pronounce Ludum Dare. You might pronounce it Ludum Dare. The thing is, back in the day when I pronounced it Ludum Dare, I got yelled at. So I am now bullied into saying Dare, like some sort of Latin human.
No, it is definitely Ludum Dare. Absolutely. No, it's because they have those keynotes at the beginning, right?
Mike, the creator, calls it Ludum Dare, so you go fight him.
Oh, well, I lose then. I was gonna say I saw like one of those keynote like introductions for Ludum Dare, and the guy pronounced it Ludum Dare, so I said, okay, that's what it is, and everyone else was wrong.
It's Latin. It's Latin for to give a game. So.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I never really knew what it was.
So I continued to do coverage. There's only 4 game jams a year. There was Ludum Dare. There was the charity game jam, which I participated in one year. There was Ludum Dare charity game jam, the Christmas game jam. Oh, and the ZX Spectrum game jam. That was it. And I was like, I can cover 4 game jams a year. Yeah, Ludum Dare is 3.5 times. But I can cover all of that. That's fine. I can do this. And I did for a while. And then Game Jolt was like, hey, I was a mod for Game Jolt for a while. P.S. Slide that in. And Game Jolt was like, stop being a mod, and that's a long story. And I was like, cool, no worries. And then they were like, P.S. We're opening up a Game Jam system. It'd be so great if you could run a Game Jam and test out our system. You'll be the first person to use it who's not working for Game Jam and working for Game Jolt. And I was like, cool. And so I ran a game jam. I also ran a couple of tag jams, which were like these game jams that because no one had an easy way for you to set up your own game jam, the winner had to host them on their own website and domain they had to pay for. That's a fun one. But yeah, so I hosted the Game Jolt game jam, and I still was in school messing around, trying to figure out what I was meant to do with my life. Really wanted to travel. All my friends were in England, so I went to England on a vacation visa and then went back and forth and moved here. Meanwhile going, yeah, I'm gonna get a job someday and stop. At one point, I was really low on money because obviously I didn't have a job on a visitor visa in England because that's illegal. And I put out a tweet like, someone should pay me for articles. Previously, I had been writing for free for people, right. And Alpha Beta Gamer was like, we'll pay you. And I was like, what? And they did, which was insane. Most of my jobs have been through rogue tweets on the internet. So somewhere along the line, everyone else decided, like Itch and Game Jolt, they were going to make public game jam systems, and it was really bad, because Compo Hub no longer kept up, and I was like, hey, Compo Hub, give me Compo Hub, I can fix this, and Compo Hub said, no, we don't know you, you're just some teenager who hangs out at home a lot. And I said, cool, I'll make indiegamejams.com, and so, Chris, ContraLogic, and Bunny Hero put that together for me, and it was really just supposed to be a website that made my job easier, but a lot of people use it now, which is really cool. When I got to England, I wanted to do real jobs and, like, break away from games, I suppose, because it's not a real job, right? I grew up in a very small town, so no one really did games. So when I came to England, I was invited to speak at a university based on a picture of a shopping mall after not being a face on the internet ever, which was really, really creepy. However, they said they'd give me food, and I was very poor and really wanted food. So I went to give a talk at their university, and it's a really, really crappy talk where I don't really say a whole lot of meaningful stuff because it's my first one, and I'm 18. And at the end of a talk, a girl stood up, and she said, I don't really have a question. I just want to say that you covering my game made me feel like a real developer, and it's the reason why I'm still developing and I followed my dream. And I was like, what game did I play? And she was like, oh, my game from this game jam. And I was like, thank you so much for entering the first game jam I ever held. It meant a lot to me that we got so many entries. And I was like, okay, I'll keep doing this. I mean, I can't get a job anyway. It's really hard to hire immigrants, it turns out, especially ones that don't go to college. So yeah, I started going to events, which ties into the being able to network. It turns out a lot of the game industry is quite small, and it's a lot about who you know. England's a very good country because despite what English people will tell you, compared to America, it's really fucking tiny. this means that you can just drive 7 hours to any other part of England, and you're American and had to drive an hour to a store, so 7 hours isn't too bad. So I started like hyper going to events and like hyper putting myself out there, which is super scary because I mean, my graduating class, my graduating year was like 30 kids, 5 were homeschooled.
Wow.
And I was going into events and into rooms with people, and in my eyesight were more people than I'd ever seen in a single area. And I needed to hand out business cards and interact and make a good first impression and explain what I do and listen to people say shit that I didn't like and just deal with it. And it's hard at first. It's really hard at first, especially when you don't know anyone.
Right.
And especially, like, I don't want to be like as a woman in game, but as a woman in games... I remember the first time I went to EGX Rezzed, I didn't even have, like, I did have a press pass. The first time I went to EGX Rezzed with a press pass, I went up to this game that I had previously written about, and I waited, and I was there with a male friend of mine, and they were like, do you want to play to him? And he was like, well, she's press, you know, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, she won't get it. Well, and I kind of blinked a lot, and I waited, and I was like, okay, and I sat down and I played it, and I did quite well because I've played the game before. And I got back up and I introduced myself and I was like, oh, I write for Alpha Beta Gamer. We wrote about your game. And their face changed.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like that shit that happens all the time. Not so much now that I have like a Twitter following and people know me, but like a lot of people would say shit like, oh, what do you do? And I'd be like, yeah, I write for a couple of websites that people hadn't really heard about. And also I have a YouTube channel. And I remember the time that a guy looked at me and went, everyone has a YouTube channel, dear, and then just turned away and stopped talking to me. And I was like, whoa, networking's difficult. And it's just that sort of thing. But eventually you start to know people and you start to have people that you feel comfortable with, and they'll introduce you to more people. And I've got a lot of work that way. I ended up getting opportunities with Amazon. I'm currently an Amazon App Store hero through connections that I've made at events with Amazon evangelists. And I've been able to write for the Metro UK through meeting other writers from the Metro at events, and it's such an important part, just getting out there and saying hello to people and just communicating. It's so great.
That's the thing, because when I first got into game development, my preconceived notion was that, you know, everyone says you have to know somebody to get jobs and to get, you know, these gigs and stuff. And while on a level that's true, the way I interpreted that message was, my dad has to be the CEO of Microsoft or something like that, you know, like something I already have going into it. You know, I can at least say that every job or opportunity I have gotten has come out of knowing somebody, but I didn't know these people before I started, and it really is just about meeting them and putting yourself out there to meet these different people. Yes, it's true. Knowing people is, you know, kind of how you get a lot of jobs and opportunities, but you can meet people. As simple and as dumb as that sounds, you know,
seriously, just go up to people that you even look up to.
Yeah.
Like, just go up to people, like, find Rami Ishmael at his event, see his little group of followers, walk up to him and go, hey, I really like Nuclear Throne. And he'll smile with you and he'll shake your hand, and about the 4th or 5th time you meet him at events and you go, hey, I just wanted to say hello. I saw you 2 months ago at Develop. They'll remember you, and they'll think, like, you'll become, like, a person that they know.
Right, because people are just people. You know, like, it's, you know, as dumb as that might sound, is, you know, I know that if someone was that persistent with me and showed up and always met me and said hello, like, I would remember them. And I think it's really easy to alienate yourself from people who have whatever your definition is of success and yourself, and you know, think of this massive wall in between those lines of people.
Okay, I'm not saying annoy people. I'm not saying annoy people, though. I'm just saying, like, go out to a lot of events. And if you live in an area, other people will also be there. And I'm saying don't be afraid. Like, a lot of people tweet at me after an event. And they're like, oh, I saw you at Be My Human, that event in Madrid. And I couldn't come up and talk to you because it would have been weird. And it's like, no, I'm there for you to talk to me. Right. I'm most of the time wandering around on my own thinking, oh, look, games. Please talk to me. Just don't be afraid.
Right. Oh, we actually just hit the 1 hour mark. Do you know what that means? This means that we enter the fun portion of the podcast where we ask questions that have nothing to do with game development. Let's talk about food. Jupiter, you had some amazing food tonight that you were...
can we talk about my Christmas menu instead of the food that I ate tonight?
Yes.
Sure.
Like, the food I ate tonight's digested.
Yeah.
I've moved on.
Okay, tell me about your Christmas menu.
So,
I want to hear.
I am stuck in England because I have no passport because the British government is awful. So, I'm making food. My grandmother, I'm going to give you a story. My grandmother has Discord now, which is terrifying, I know. And basically, my brother invited me to my family Discord channel and ratted out my Discord name, yet he is not in the Discord channel and doesn't care about my sadness in all of this. So, my grandmother is a big cook, and so we were talking about menu stuff, and I'm going to do a couple of things. We were raised Italian. So my grandmother does ham bread, and basically it's homemade bread, and inside of that is like provolone cheese, pepperoni, smoked ham, and pickled peppers, bell peppers, and it's baked, and it's so good. So I'm making ham bread.
Sounds amazing.
Ham bread all from scratch. I hope I can find provolone in England. I'm having some difficulties. But I just spoke to my grandmother during this podcast because it's 1:37 a.m., so why wouldn't my grandmother be messaging me to tell me about how I'm wrong because I said, could I use pizza dough instead of making homemade Italian bread? I can't. Good to know. She said I could use Jarlsberg cheese. I don't know if that's any easier to make, but sure. Find, I mean. I'm also going to probably do my guac. The key to a good guacamole is a tablespoon of olive oil at the end. It'll add a lot to your guac. I'm also probably going to do bruschetta, but both with the olive tapenade and the tomato on top as well. And I'm going to make beef stroganoff, but like my dad's version, which is just like minced beef and mushrooms and gravy over noodles and cheese.
Okay,
Parmesan.
so I have a question.
Oh, and gingerbread.
This is gonna be a hot topic. You said you were raised Italian, though, right? Your
Yeah.
family is Italian. You just said it's bruschetta.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it well. I always got picked on.
Okay. I was gonna argue that it's bruschetta, but
yeah, I can't
it's
do
not
the
really my
weird
place.
middle bit.
The weird like yeah. Okay, as long as. Okay,
I want to say I was raised Italian, and I don't even know what that is.
Bruschetta? Bruschetta is like, well, I mean, I don't need to explain it. I'm not
so
Italian.
What you do is you take Italian bread and you cut off little like chunks.
It's Italian bread.
Okay. Seabass. Are you just here to make me angry?
No, I'm serious. I have no idea the difference. I know about sourdough and I know about white bread. And
you are white bread.
and grain. That's right. And plain as can be.
All right. All right.
You take Italian bread.
It's a flat oven baked. Well, it's not normally like it's an oven baked. I don't know how to like. It's a similar texture to pizza dough. It's basically baked pizza dough. Like we're Italian. Like it's baked pizza dough.
Okay,
right.
I'm following you now.
So, bruschetta. Technically bruschetta. Technically, my grandmother is Sicilian. So I'm gonna start there. So she's not really Italian. She's Sicilian. Which is why I eat this way. But basically, it's like a small cut bit of bread, and you toast it in the oven with a little bit of olive oil, and then you rub garlic on it, and then you take olives and you puree them in a food processor with a little bit of olive oil and also garlic because you're me and you love garlic, and then you spread that on top of your bread, and then you take tomatoes and you cut them up with basil and olive oil, and you let that soak for a little bit, and then you put that on top, and then you put on a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and then you put it back in the oven, and then you take it out and you eat it, and you shove it down the throats of your friends and enemies, and it's great.
So it's garlic bread. That's what I'm gathering here.
Oh my god.
He stopped listening at the garlic bit?
No,
I heard garlic, basil, olive oil, put it back in the oven with Parmesan on it.
No, it is very, very good, and it is not just garlic bread. It is way more advanced than that.
I mean, it's got toppings for a start. When's the last time garlic bread had toppings, mate?
Yeah, it's like garlic
Every
bread.
time I've gone to Olive Garden, they have garlic
and
bread with
Parmesan.
on top, basil.
Okay,
I think
so Olive Garden is our new way.
And vinegar.
Okay.
It's not real Italian, but it's close enough.
Okay. I have a question. Can we pretend
Yes.
this is the game show The Fix, and can we fix my problem instead?
Yes, I don't know that
Okay.
show, but yes.
Okay, the game show The Fix, it's now airing on Netflix. It's, and they
Okay.
take America's problems, they fix it, and I'm not affiliated at all with Netflix in the show. But it's a
Okay,
really
wait.
good show.
Okay, go on.
So, obviously, I play a lot of games, and I cover Lunum Dare, which is fine, and I love covering Lunum Dare. But for whatever reason, currently, since about mid-November, I just get, like, massive downvotes on random videos. So, like, my Lunum Dare Part 12...
about this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it has 280 views, which is like 100 more views than other games within the set, and then just
Right.
like 112 downvotes. And then like my new, like I played a Let's Play of Grist, this beautiful game, and it's got like
Yes.
197 views, but like 118 downvotes.
So someone has launched a downvote bot against you, which is a thing that you can do. So apparently you have some enemies.
Yeah, but like, what did I do?
I don't know. That
See, on the internet,
I'm looking.
doing anything that's not nothing is a problem. Yeah.
I mean, I started playing.
Have you contacted YouTube?
I'm not high enough to contact YouTube. Like,
That's
I could walk
fair.
to their fucking headquarters and they'll go, "You don't have 2 million views. Go die." And I'll go, "Okay."
Okay, be right back.
But like, in the duration of this podcast, my like latest Let's Play, which is Tiny Bird Garden Deluxe. I mean, it's a game about feeding tiny bird. Like, why? But that's gotten like 10 more dislikes, and it's like, what? I'm at a loss here, and it's really bad.
Oh, I have a solution. So, you're gonna start every video with, make sure to dislike this video to show your approval.
Yeah.
And that way, people know after that.
That's
that
not
you're
how
really
the
popular.
that's not how the algorithm works. Here's what I was gonna say. I can't fix this problem because I don't know what's going on, but I can abuse this platform by saying to everyone that we're gonna put a link to Jupiter's channel in the description, and I want you to all go and smash
And
that like
subscribe.
button
Oh my god.
and just
Oh, you're
just
fired.
balance the tide. And okay, before I get fired,
No, I mean, but it's a really big problem, guys. Like, I'm really quite sad about this, and like the only thing I can think of.
yeah, I don't
Is
know
a-
how to explain it.
No, I'm actually really standing by the dislike idea, because then the person might actually stop because they're like, "Damn it, I don't want to look good," and he'll swap it to the like
Oh,
button.
I've got no view time. Like, my view
No, it's all
time hasn't
bots.
gone up. Like, these are clearly just bots. But I feel like the only thing is I'm in a contest where you can win a PS4 if you vote for my face, and I've been like winning it for a while, and then another streamer entered.
Okay.
And she was winning for a bit, and then all of her fans were like, "Oh, the other person uses bots," because I started winning again, and now my channel's getting downvotes, and
Oh.
like I don't want this.
Well, I was gonna say is that we always ask at the end of the episode, is there something that you want to plug or promote? So if you want to promote the PS4 contest, by all means.
I mean, it ends on Christmas Eve, so that's in like 2 days.
I don't have time to edit it that fast.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
I've
not
got
gonna-
like a good 300 votes more than anyone else, so like I'm probably fine.
Oh, I think you'll.
But
be
it's
okay.
just like these downvotes, are they
sure.
worth the PS4? I mean, no.
No, that's weird. I hope it tones down soon. I mean, those bots undoubtedly cost money to pay for them to run, so I'm sure someone will lose their Steam eventually. So hopefully it's
I
just a
hope
temporary
so.
thing. But yeah, it is very annoying. But apart from that, is there anything that you want to plug or promote before we close out this episode, Jupiter?
Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm at Jupiter Hadley on YouTube and most other platforms. You can follow me on Twitter, where you can see pictures of food, cute selfies, and indie gaming stuff. I write for some
Perfect.
websites like Big Boss Battle and Indie Games Plus. I co-own both of those. If you have a game that needs reviewing, ping me. Other stuff. Cool.
Other stuff.
We'll put those links down below. Jupiter, thank you for joining us in this episode. This has
Thank
been a
you for
really
having
fun
me.
one. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to this episode of Object Podcast. It's been a really awesome role for us so far, and we're so glad to have all of you with us. But until next time, thank you, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
But yeah, seriously, I'm not sure if I can put the alcohol talk at the start of the podcast.
Is Sandbox still in here? Where's my Sandbox? I think it was okay because I.
Oh no, it's not a legal issue. It's just
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
Professionalism.
Oh. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. I personally think it's fine. I want the podcast to just have more fun and be chill. But we can talk about it later. I think it's fine though. You know, people.
I mean, do I get to vote?
Sure.
I vote you leave it. Is this sponsored by Yo-Yo?
No, this is not.
Then I vote you leave it.
Okay.
Can we get sponsorship?
Can we? That'd be awesome.
I mean,
I'll make some
anyone
calls.
can get sponsorship. I mean, it's just who will sponsor you. I mean, I'm sure if you open up everyone with talking about alcohol, you can get like Smirnoff or like.
my favorite podcast got sponsored by various alcohol companies.
Right. So you know how we were talking about game jams?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, a long, long time ago, my housemate, he hasn't drank in 17 years, and he was like, the only way I drink is if there was, like, a game jam around it or something, and I was like, game jam? Shots jam. So we thought of this game jam called Shots Jam, where every hour, it's a 24-hour game jam, every hour you take a shot. Every time you run your code, and it doesn't work, every time you run your code, you take a shot, and every time it doesn't work, you take an additional shot.
Okay,
amazing.
you die a minute in.
That's amazing. I want to do that.
So this is Shots Jam, TM. We're gonna get sponsored by Red Bull and also Smirnoff.
I'll do it.
It's gonna be great.
I'll survive. No, seriously, people will die like 10 minutes into that.
Seriously, people will die.
Like, I don't think,
what
I
do you
think
think they're doing?
I'm gonna be encouraged to never. I'm gonna write my code the entire game in one run.
No.
Never
check out what
compile
Yal
the game.
says in the chat.
You may only be less than of GM Live. Run the game once and never close it. Oh man, have to create all your resources ahead of time. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I'd do it.
Shots Jam. I'd do it.
I'd do it.
Sebastian even still in here? Sebastian. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Okay, me too.
Cool.